My mom, a typical traditional rural woman, simple, hardworking, and even a bit ignorant, passed away from complications during childbirth, less than 2 months after trying to give our family a son. My grandma brought my stepmom into the house. I thought my stepmom could give me a little brother, but tests revealed she was infertile. Grandma forced her to divorce, and as my stepmom was leaving with nothing, she suddenly asked me, "Do you want to come with me?" My birth mom was a classic example of a traditional rural woman, pure, hardworking, even a little ignorant. From childhood, she was at the beck and call of her own family, and when she married, she was sold into her husband's family to be bossed around. She didn't like me either. I was just a bloody mark, constantly reminding her that she couldn't bear a son. During her confinement after my birth, she had no eggs, no brown sugar. Grandma ignored her. Dad left early and came back late, but she never complained about them. She just kept blaming herself for not having a boy. Being a girl was a huge mistake. She couldn't hold her head high anywhere, and I had to share in her suffering. Dad, working out of town, followed a trend and bought a floral dress in the city. It was the best dress I had ever seen in my life, clean, pretty, even embroidered with butterflies. Grandma's face instantly fell when she saw it. "Why would a girl need new clothes?" she scoffed. I had never worn new clothes. I always wore hand-me-downs from others. So, on New Year's Day, I saw that floral dress on the little girl next door. It was truly beautiful. Grandma, smiling, counted the money in her hand, even bargaining for a few extra dollars, saying it meant they could buy more meat. Mom also stared intently at the money in Grandma's hand, nodding in agreement. Exactly. She's just a useless girl. Why wear such nice clothes? She doesn't have the princess's fate. In the end, I didn't get to wear that floral dress, nor did I get to eat the extra meat. Dad looked at me, then at the meat in his bowl, sighed, and said nothing more. Without a son, he always felt he couldn't raise his head in the village. He could only blame me for not being a son. At the dinner table, Grandma chewed her meat, vaguely pointing at Mom and saying, "If you don't give us a male heir this year, you're out." Mom awkwardly smiled and nodded in agreement. Just a few months after the new year, Mom became pregnant again. Her belly was pointed, and old Mrs. Wang, who had 2 sons, said it looked like it would be a boy. Grandma was so happy that day. She immediately butchered a chicken and cooked a pot of fragrant chicken soup. She personally brought it to Mom, then pulled up a small stool and sat beside her, staring at her belly. "Ah, you must take good care of yourself. My precious grandchild must be healthy." As she watched, Grandma noticed me sweeping nearby and asked, "Ching Ching, do you also think your mom has a little brother in her belly?" I nodded timidly, unaccustomed to Grandma calling me little brother. Yesterday, Ching Ching dreamt of playing with her little brother. Grandma instantly beamed and went to the kitchen to get me an egg. "Later, when your brother is born, you can't fight with him for things. Understand?" I ate my first egg in my life. It was delicious. Is this what little brother will get to eat every day? I wondered. Grandma even arranged for Mom to go for a prenatal checkup in town. We woke up early and endured a bumpy bus ride. After the checkup, the doctor frowned and looked me up and down. "This child is malnourished. You need to go back and give her some good supplements." Mom tugged at me, saying, "We don't have much money at home. Girls are going to get married off anyway. They're useless." After we got home, Grandma cut another piece of fatty pork, specifically for Mom to eat. I watched, mouth watering, so I looked up, holding my chipped bowl filled only with cabbage, and asked Grandma, "Is little brother being born next month? I really want to play with him." Grandma smiled and put a few pieces of meat in my bowl. Ching Ching will get to play with her brother very soon. The day Grandma had been anticipating arrived quickly. Grandma went to call the best midwife in the village and had a pot of hot water boiling early. But then, an accident happened. They say subsequent births for boys are usually as easy as eating and drinking, but for my mom, it was the opposite. My mom had been in labor for 5 hours on the birthing bed, but my brother still wouldn't come out. The midwife said this birth was incredibly dangerous and would likely be a difficult ordeal. My grandma waited anxiously outside the delivery room, constantly asking about the situation inside. After a few more basins of bloody water were carried out, the midwife rushed out, looking troubled. "The situation is dangerous. Save the mother or the child?" Grandma immediately started cursing, calling Mom a jinx who couldn't protect her grandson. "It must be my grandson. You must save my grandson." A little while later, Mom was gone, and there was no cry from a newborn. The midwife told Grandma it was a stillborn. Neither mother nor child was saved. Grandma instantly burst into a loud, overwhelming wail. Dad, who had just returned, silently smoked a whole pouch of pipe tobacco. A few days later, my mom, along with the baby boy who never made a sound, was buried in a pot. Less than 6 months later, Grandma brought my stepmom into the house. My stepmom was an outsider, cheap, with no family to back her up. She was working alone here, and Dad gave her some money to bring her home. They met Grandma, then hastily put together a few tables of drinks, which counted as a wedding. My stepmom seemed to dislike me, just like my mom. She always wore a stern expression and wouldn't let me touch her things. However, she also didn't get angry and specially curse or kick me, or vent her frustrations on me for every small mistake, like my mom used to. Soon after the marriage, my stepmom and dad went back to work, leaving Grandma and me in the empty house. I never ate the eggs laid by our chickens again. Every day for school, it was just plain cabbage porridge. However, Grandma would boil an egg every morning, of course, not for me, but for my cousin, who was the same age as me. My cousin would hold the egg, not in a hurry to eat it, and then at school, he'd wave it in front of me. After he finished eating, he'd smack his lips and say, "Ching ching, your family's eggs are really good." My cousin was in my class and was very mischievous. He would either threaten me to copy his homework or break his own pencil and take mine. I chased him from school all the way home, and he always hid behind Grandma. "Grandma, she's bullying me," he'd whine. Grandma's face would darken, and she'd pat my cousin's head. "Ching ching, don't bully your little brother. How old are you?" But I was only 2 months older. The words of protest got stuck in my throat like fish bones. Grandma ignored me, affectionately pulling my cousin into the kitchen. "Come, my good grandson, have another egg, study hard and become a great official." After dinner, I walked up to Grandma, who had just seen off my cousin. "Grandma, my pencil was ruined by my cousin. I want to buy a new one." Grandma immediately frowned and scolded me. "Still bringing that up? Starting to ask me for things, are you? What's the use of a girl reading so many books?" The next day, my cousin showed off his new pencil in front of me. "Grandma bought this for me yesterday. It was so expensive. It could buy 10 cheap ones." I ignored him. I carefully pulled out a pencil I had been tinkering with all night from my backpack. It was an eyebrow pencil I had secretly found in my stepmom's cabinet. I meticulously wrote my name on my notebook. Meanwhile, my cousin scoffed. I couldn't help but wonder why my cousin, who consistently ranked at the bottom of the class, was held in such high regard, while I, a girl who excelled in school, was not valued. During the new year, Dad and stepmom finally came back. Stepmom discovered her eyebrow pencil missing in less than half a day. She called me into the room. "Where's my eyebrow pencil?" I lowered my head, not daring to look at her, my hands nervously clutching the hem of my clothes. I didn't have a pencil, so I used it to write. "I'm sorry." I squeezed my eyes shut, my body tensing, waiting for a beating. She sighed and rummaged through a large bag of things she had brought back. "Don't use eyebrow pencils anymore. Here, have these pencils." I took the pencils, my mouth slightly agape. I thought about what Grandma said about honoring my stepmom. "Thank you, Mom," I mumbled, the title feeling foreign on my tongue. Stepmom's face showed no smile. Instead, she scolded me angrily. "I'm not your mom. Study hard, go out and see the world, understand?" I thought for a moment and showed her my red honor roll certificate. The coldness on her face finally dissipated a bit. She pressed the certificate to the bottom of a wooden box, then fumbled for a few candies. "That's more like it. I'm not your real mom, so you can only rely on yourself, understand?" I nodded, and a strong, sweet taste of candy spread in my mouth. On New Year's Day, at the dinner table, Grandma started pressuring stepmom to have a son. "You mustn't be like the last one. Unlucky, only giving birth to a useless girl." Stepmom raised an eyelid, ignoring her, and continued eating her rice. Seeing stepmom ignore her, Grandma turned to criticize her son instead. "Look, this girl makes me unable to hold my head up in the village." She then put down her bowl, pointed at me, and cursed. "She's going to be someone else's property sooner or later anyway. What's the use of raising her?" I listened without retorting, just silently chewing my rice. "Mom, we're eating," Dad said, stopping his meal, ready to speak up for me. Grandma's face instantly stretched long and sour as she brought up old grievances. "If you're still like this for the ancestral worship next year, you'll be kneeling outside. You're so useless." In our village, families without boys were not allowed to enter the ancestral hall to worship. After the new year, stepmom and dad decided to stay for a few months for the busy farming season. Grandma also planned for her to have a child. Days continued as usual, but stepmom would secretly give me a few candies when I got an award. Grandma, however, still went to stepmom's room every day, relentlessly pressing her to have a baby. I thought this would end with stepmom getting pregnant. I also wanted a little brother, to make stepmom my true mom. But then, one day, as I walked home from school, I heard Grandma's cries of anguish. "You're going to end the Lee family line." Grandma plopped down on the ground, pointing at my helpless stepmom. Dad was pulling Grandma aside, surrounded by curious villagers. It turned out my stepmom couldn't have children at all. An old Chinese doctor had come to the village that day, and Grandma, hearing about him, had taken a few eggs and asked him to examine stepmom to see how she could have a boy. The old doctor took her pulse and shook his head, telling Grandma that stepmom had a cold constitution and it would be very difficult for her to have children in the future. Grandma immediately started wailing, making a scene, and threatening to hang herself, demanding that Dad divorce stepmom. "It's not enough that you had a useless daughter, now you want to marry a barren hen, do you?" My sister-in-law pulled my cousin over to watch the spectacle, then turned to Mrs. Wang and said, "My uncle is also unlucky, his wife died, and now this one can't even bear children." After a day of agonizing and with advice from neighbors, Dad finally relented and decided to talk to stepmom. In the dim candlelight of the room, I couldn't make out their expressions. "Let's get a divorce." "I'm sorry." Dad's voice trembled as he took out their marriage certificate. Stepmom was silent for a moment, then took the marriage certificate from the wooden table. "You were the one who said you'd give me a home." Dad gritted his teeth, took out a stack of cash from the drawer, and placed it neatly in front of stepmom. "It's my fault, but I need a son. You know my mom's situation." Stepmom didn't take the money on the table. She turned and started packing her luggage, dropping a sentence, "Then let's go handle the divorce tomorrow. The money, just buy your daughter something to eat." I stood by the broom, listening with trepidation, a hint of reluctance flashing in my heart. Was stepmom really leaving? After this, there would be no more baked hard candies, no more half eggs at the bottom of my rice bowl. As stepmom came out to gather clothes, she saw me spacing out nearby. She suddenly walked up to me and asked, "Do you want to come with me?" I said I didn't know, but my hand gripped the broom handle tightly. She didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled at me for the first time. She slipped a piece of paper with numbers on it into my hand. "Think about it and call me, and you must study hard." The next day, before dawn, stepmom, carrying her meager luggage, went with Dad to the city to get their divorce certificate. I tucked that piece of paper into my book. This piece of paper, I couldn't let anyone know about. A few months later, Grandma found another wife for Dad. She was a second wife with a daughter older than me. I should have called her sister. Grandma said she had big hips, good for bearing children. The day after the wedding, Sister handed me her and her mother's clothes and told me to wash them by the river. The river had just thawed, and the water was freezing cold. I carried a wooden bucket almost as big as me, inching my way to the river. Sometimes, a hole I had just broken through would freeze over again, so I had to use a wooden hammer to break it open and continue dipping my frostbitten hands into the icy water. When I finally returned home with a bucket of clothes heavier than myself, Sister looked at them disdainfully. "You're not young anymore, and you can't even wash clothes. Does my mom have to wait on you too?" My new mom's belly was quite cooperative. In less than a year, our family welcomed a little brother. Grandma, who originally didn't like Sister, now tacitly allowed Sister to bully me. So Sister became even more arrogant and wantonly bullied me and Dad. Because of the new male heir, Dad worked in the city for months on end. I was forced to move into the drafty woodshed, giving the warm, spacious side room to Sister. My new mom also disliked me, ordering me around while holding my brother, and occasionally pinching me. Grandma was now completely focused on her grandson, calling granddaughters useless goods. "Ching ching, your mom has a bad temper, just don't provoke her." That night, after washing dishes for the whole family, I climbed onto the creaky little bed, feeling the cold wind blowing from all sides. For a moment, I really missed my stepmom's fruit candies and eggs. The year I was going from elementary to middle school, I got into a middle school in the city, but the tuition was a significant amount. My sister's grades were terrible. She could barely get into the worst high school, but she was jealous of me. "Mom, Sister's tuition is so expensive." Wouldn't it be better to save the money for little brother? With sister's constant suggestions, Grandma decided I should go to the worst middle school nearby and save the money for my little brother. I was unwilling, so I went up to Dad and asked him, "Dad, Ching wants to go to high school in the city. I'll definitely take good care of you in the future." Dad looked into my eyes but said nothing. That night, my parents argued. The thin dirt walls couldn't block my stepmom's sharp voice. $100 a semester. Isn't it better to save it for Xiaoji? He's your family's male heir, but I see that she will definitely have a future. Even with a future, she's still a girl. She'll belong to someone else eventually. Have you thought this through? Dad's voice gradually lowered. Then I'll go talk to her tomorrow. The third day, after breakfast, I saw Dad standing in front of me. Ching, we don't have that much money at home. Any middle school is fine. I don't know how I remained calm and said, "Okay." After Dad left, Sister looked at me with schadenfreude. Why isn't our resident academic going to the top middle school? I ignored her. I clutched the thin piece of paper I had treasured for so long and rushed to the village head's office. I casually made up an excuse about calling the school. I dialed the number and called my stepmom. Hearing her familiar voice through the receiver, my eyes reddened. "I've thought about it. I want to go with you." The next day, a familiar figure appeared at the village entrance. I led him directly to Dad. Dad was also surprised. "Why are you here?" "I've decided to adopt Ching," he said. Dad was taken aback. "Why?" "I want to go to the top middle school. I'm willing to go with her." Grandma also came over. Hearing the commotion, holding her grandson, her sharp voice pierced my eardrums. "This girl I painstakingly raised, she's worth a good bride price when she gets married. How can you just adopt her casually?" My stepmom looked at Grandma's self-righteous words and almost laughed. She pulled up my thin sleeve, revealing shocking marks from cane beatings. Grandma's aggression didn't lessen, it increased. "Girls need discipline. How else will she marry into a good family?" Finally, out of guilt, Dad restrained Grandma and went to the village head's office, where he formally transferred me to my stepmom's care. In the car on the way back, I felt very guilty, constantly apologizing to her. She smiled and shook her head, then, as if by magic, pulled out a large pack of mints, breaking off a big piece for me. "From now on, we're family. Good girl, call me Mom." After arriving in the city, Mom, after much persuasion, managed to clear out a factory dormitory room for me. She then pulled out half of her savings to pay for my school enrollment. Seeing my thin body, so gaunt that even the smallest clothes hung loose, she decided she needed to fatten me up. Every morning, she would prepare an egg, waking up very early to buy pork ribs at the market to make soup for me. There wasn't much meat, but the soup was still fragrant. Mama's unspoken love. Everyone said my mom was foolish. Who would raise someone else's daughter so meticulously? My mom just smiled foolishly, working even harder, scrambling for extra shifts, just to get a little more meat or buy another piece of candy for her foster daughter. I also studied harder. However, in the first exam after school started, facing mostly classmates from the city, I still faltered. I only ranked 20th in my class. On the way home, I felt like the sky was gloomy. I didn't want to go home. Afraid of seeing Mom's disappointed face, I sat blankly by the road, gazing at the swirling lake water, recalling the teachers' whispers behind their office doors. Rural education quality just isn't good enough. First or second place, there is only 10th or 20th here. Exactly. And then others will get tutoring, so the gap will widen even more. She's quite diligent, but unfortunately, she's from the countryside. I felt a bit annoyed. Why did I come to school in the city? Perhaps a wild chicken can't become a phoenix after all. But I wasn't willing to give up. Was the countryside truly inferior to the city? When I got home and saw the fragrant braised pork on the table, I still felt a bit guilty. "You're home. Eat first," she said, holding the bowl. I couldn't swallow anything. Tears instantly welled up. "Why are you crying, child? So you didn't do well on the exam. Just try harder next time." After dinner, Mom fumbled around and handed me 2 new study guides. I don't know what's best, but these 2 were the most expensive, so they should be good too. I stroked Mom's calloused hands. To earn more money, she worked day and night shifts, even taking on jobs typically done by men, but she never told me any of this. Only occasionally, she would point to a gold bracelet in a passing shop and jokingly say, "Later, you must buy me one." From that day on, I decided to study 2 more hours every night. The lamp in the room wasn't bright enough, so I went to the street lamp, reading page after page under its light. After 2 months of staying up late, I had lost some of the weight I had gained back. Mom saw it but said nothing, instead cooking a pot of pig's blood soup every day for me to drink at night to replenish my energy. I felt more energetic every day. In the second exam, I ranked in the top 10 of my class and won a progress award. I skipped home happily, passing by another dormitory. The whispers coming from inside made me freeze. Don't you think that person is a fool? She could remarry, but she insists on supporting a girl through school. Didn't someone come to ask about her the other day? Her conditions are so good, and they don't even mind her physical issues. Yes, perhaps if she hadn't raised me, Mom wouldn't be so tired. She could also remarry. It would be better than struggling to raise me, an uncared-for girl. I returned home, but my spirits weren't as high. Such great progress this time. Come on, let's go out for some stir-fried rice noodles. At the stall, I ate the most expensive rice noodles with extra meat, while Mom ate the cheapest vegetarian ones. Mom, I don't want to study anymore. Take me to work in the factory with you. She instantly put down her chopsticks. Who's been spreading rumors behind your back? Don't listen to them. You can only get out by studying more. Besides, this is an investment. Understand what I mean by investment? You are going to buy me a gold bracelet someday. I stared at her, wearing a faded, worn-out black-edged shirt, and shouted, when I earn money later, I'll buy you the biggest, heaviest gold bracelet. She smiled and rubbed my head. Such a child, not a penny to your name and already bragging. It was a late autumn night, and the wind blew a bit cold, but my heart was intensely warm. On the way back, sitting on the back of her somewhat dilapidated bicycle, Mom talked to me, long and rambling. It turned out she once had a younger sister who was an excellent student, so good that when she was sick and missed a few days of school, the principal and teachers would visit her at home. Because of the preference for sons, her sister couldn't continue high school. She was married off hastily with a small dowry and spent her entire life trapped in the mountains. How ridiculous that she once had wings to soar into the blue sky, but they were cut off little by her family with dull knives. When I first saw you, I thought of my sister. I hope you can soar into the blue sky. The wind was strong, making Mom's voice tremble a bit. I hugged her thin waist tightly, saying nothing. Mom, with all her courage, escaped that family that favored boys over girls, and now, she would use her frail shoulders to support me towards a brighter future, without distractions. And with my diligent and hard-working approach to studying, my grades improved rapidly. My homeroom teacher also started to think highly of me, occasionally calling me to do some leftover practice problems. My classmates also admired my almost desperate drive to study, dispelling the subtle distance they had kept from me before. I almost wished I could split time in half to study. On weekends, without a tutor, I would go to the library by myself in the cold wind and study all day. The library was cold in winter, so I refilled my thermos with free hot water again and again. My classmates didn't understand why I was so desperate. After the third day of the Lunar New Year, I would consistently return to school to self-study. I didn't want people to laugh at my mom, and I wanted to take her out of this small town even more. After the first monthly exam of the new semester, I got first place in my class. I had surpassed classmates who had hired several tutors during the winter break, classmates whose parents were highly educated, and even the impossible me I once thought I was. Mom was very happy, riding her creaky bicycle to buy a hen and stew it into a fragrant chicken soup. Chiu Yu, your family is stewing chicken soup again? Aunt Zhang upstairs poked her head out. Hanging clothes. Yes, Qingqing got first place in her class this time. She makes me so proud. The conversation continued. I drank the bowl of chicken soup, full of meat, and continued to memorize vocabulary, the rich bowl of chicken soup representing her silent love for me. Finally, in my junior year of high school, nourished by endless love, I began my full sprint. At 1 a.m., the light in my room was still on. Before the factory's wake-up call even sounded, I was already heading to school under the stars. My mom's eyes showed heartache, and she made me different kinds of food and stewed soups. I was always one of the earliest to arrive at school and one of the last to leave. I chewed every knowledge point until it was thoroughly understood, and I did every missed problem dozens, even hundreds of times. My life had a very low tolerance for error. It couldn't afford any mistakes. In mid-June, accompanied by the buzzing of cicadas, I walked into the examination hall. With the creaking of the ceiling fans, the high school entrance exam flew by, but before the exam results were released, disaster struck. The scorching sun blazed down, with temperatures in the hundreds. I was working a part-time job at the mall entrance, wearing a hot, heavy mascot costume. I had a 10-minute break every hour, but before I could even sit down for a drink of water, Aunt Zhang from upstairs came to find me in a panic. Ching Ching, something happened to your mom. I didn't care about my wages. I hurriedly took off the mascot costume and rushed to the hospital. My mom's fingers had been caught in a malfunctioning machine, and 2 of them were completely severed. My eyes immediately welled up. I leaned over the bed, looking at my pale mom lying there. Why are you crying? I'm not dead. It's just 2 fingers. My mom grimaced in pain but still joked with me. Just then, a sudden, jarring phone call rang out. My homeroom teacher's excited voice instantly echoed throughout the hospital room. Ching Ching, you're the top scorer in our school, 6th in the entire county. My mind went blank for a moment. Mom coughed and laughed, the wrinkles under her eyes etched by time. She proudly looked at everyone. I told you Ching Ching would make something of herself. A few days later, my mom insisted on being discharged, saying she had only lost her hand, not become truly disabled. The factory compensated her a bit, but my mom was now partially disabled, and her work speed plummeted. The factory planned to fire my mom, but what could my mom, now half disabled, do? Receiving the acceptance letter from the top high school in the provincial capital, I felt terribly anxious. I didn't know whether I should attend this high school, which had such expensive tuition for us. Outside, my mom sighed repeatedly, counting her increasingly meager wages. I gathered my courage and walked up to her. Mom, I don't want to go to the provincial capital's high school anymore. Yesterday, the county high school called me and said they would waive all my tuition fees if I went there. My mom stuffed the money into her pocket and slapped my back. No, you worked so hard to get into that high school. You must go. Seeing my silence, she, like when I was little, pulled out a handful of candies and stuffed them into my tightly clenched hand. It's my fault. Don't worry, just go. I'll figure something out. The next day, the factory manager, carrying a box of eggs, knocked on our door. Chiu Yu, I'm willing to cover Ching Ching's future tuition and living expenses. But then the factory manager's words took a turn. But I want Ching Ching to get engaged to my son. That's the condition. My mom's originally kind face instantly became fierce. Get out, get out. Everyone in the factory knew the factory manager's son was a useless punk who idled around all day and had even gotten a girl pregnant before. But the factory manager didn't get angry. Instead, he looked at me. Ching Ching, don't you want to go to school? If it were before, I might have hesitated. But now I clearly understood that my mom wanted me to become a soaring eagle, not someone dependent on a man's affection. I opened my mouth and rejected the factory manager's proposal. The factory manager saw that we were determined to refuse and his face immediately fell. You're really ungrateful. How can a cripple like her afford to support you? My mom threw his eggs out the door and pushed him. The factory manager, seeing my mom's unyielding stance, threw down a threat. He ordered my mom to get out of here in 3 days. My mom lost her job and her place to live. Neighbors were all waiting to see her fail. Some even directly told my mom to just marry me off. My mom cursed them back. That night, she started packing her luggage and buying train tickets. Mom, where are we going? My mom continued packing without looking back, her missing fingers making her movements a bit clumsy. To the provincial capital. Let's leave this cursed place. Before dawn, we took our big and small bags and boarded the train to the provincial capital. We barely managed to rent a small room. The cost of living in the provincial capital was shockingly high, and I started to feel uneasy. Could my mom really support us in the provincial capital? A few days later, my mom started going out mysteriously every day. Half a month later, she mysteriously returned with a mobile hot pot cart and a secret recipe. For convenience, she simply set up a mobile stall near my future high school. At first, the profits weren't good. People hadn't seen this kind of thing before, and few dared to buy it. In the following days, the hot pot's reputation gradually grew, and business slowly started to pick up. I also spent my days commuting between the stall and the rented room. When it was busy, I helped my mom. When it wasn't, I sat on a red plastic stool and read. With clean, fresh ingredients and delicious flavors, my mom successfully earned enough for my tuition before school started. After the opening ceremony, my mom also closed her stall early and excitedly took me out for dinner. Guess how much mom earned this month? Her eyes sparkled with joy as she held up a certain number of fingers. After this, mom can stew chicken soup for you every day. but running a stall wasn't smooth sailing. Besides dodging city inspectors, she also had to guard against slander from competitors. Someone clutched their stomach, claiming they got food poisoning from eating at her stall. My mom's business withered for a few days, and then her stall was almost shut down. However, my mom never intended for me to know about any of this. She always asked me if I had enough money. Competition in provincial high schools was even fiercer. Here, everyone was a pearl sifted out by the big waves. I could only compete with all my might, growing vigorously like a newly sprouted sapling. My mom never forced me. She didn't know a single academic concept. She only knew that I was already working very hard. Fortunately, the surrounding classmates were friendly and harmonious, and the teachers were mostly able to treat everyone equally. Under healthy competition, my grades slowly but steadily climbed. In my freshman year, I ranked 110th. In my sophomore year, 57th. Before the first mock exam in my senior year, I was consistently in the top 20 of my grade. Everyone knew I had a mom who sold hot pot and was a bit disabled, but everyone was kind, eating hot pot a few more times and affectionately calling her auntie. I gradually shed the immense mental pressure in high school, breaking free from the cages labeled for women. I even gradually forgot all the unpleasantness of my childhood, filling my new self with fresh, beautiful memories. The stark countdown on the blackboard was erased and replaced day by day. The thick stack of test papers and exercises on my desk was gradually replaced and discarded. Over 1,000 days and nights recorded my growth, upright like a young poplar, the gap closed by sweat, the future illuminated by youth. Without regret, I signed my name on the college entrance exam message board. Years of hard study, my heavy dream carrying two people, was setting sail today. The day after the exam, an unusually heavy downpour fell, as if someone who had endured endless hardships was finally weeping out all their long-suppressed grievances. Outside the examination hall, my mom, who always hated spending money, held a huge bouquet of sunflowers, gleaming golden and becoming the most dazzling presence in the crowd. Ching ching, I'm here. Her frail body pushed desperately forward, waving at me constantly. Half a month after the college entrance exam, right after checking my scores, I received a call. My dad's wife's daughter, my stepsister, was getting married. As her nominal younger sister, Dad hoped I could come back for it. My mom immediately decided to accompany me back. She specially took me to a large department store to buy clothes. Mom, this is so expensive. I looked at the dress I had just tried on with a bit of heartache. This must cost you so many skewers to sell. But she didn't care and kept making me try on clothes. Finally, she happily bought me a big bag of clothes, only buying herself a pair of durable black pants. She hoped I could return in splendor and beauty. Stepping onto that road again, everything was different. I was no longer the person I used to be. Returning to my old home, sitting at the entrance collecting gift money was my long unseen cousin. He looked me up and down. When did your family get relatives from the city? I'm Ching Ching. We met when we were little. He raised an eyebrow in surprise and accepted the gift money. I followed my mom inside. The small house, so grand in my memory, now seemed a bit dilapidated. Sitting in the very center was my dad, looking incredibly aged. Perhaps the male heir had broken his body. The little boy chasing girls around the house was probably Grandma's precious grandson. Dad, I'm here. Dad, who had been drinking, looked up at his radiant daughter and didn't recognize me for a moment. Are you Ching Ching? I nodded, and awkwardness filled the space between us. How did you do on your college entrance exam? My mom immediately interjected, proudly announcing to everyone present. Ching Ching scored 639 on her college entrance exam. She can choose any top university in the country. Everyone's gazes instantly turned to me, and praises and exclamations poured forth. This must be Ching Ching. She's so amazing after a few years. Old Yang, you're so blessed. But what they didn't know was that 6 years ago, I had already severed ties with them. Grandma, who had been sitting nearby feeding chicken to her grandson, leaned over after hearing this. Pulling her grandson closer, she said, Grandma always knew you'd be successful. Don't forget to take care of your little brother later. This will be your maternal home then. My mom stepped in front of me and spat at her. Don't try to take credit. She has nothing to do with you now. I'm the one who raised her through all the hardship. Grandma's face immediately soured. It wasn't good to make a scene in front of so many people, so she grumbled and pulled my brother into the inner room. My stepsister wore a cheap white wedding dress, her belly heavily pregnant. The thick, Inexpensive makeup on her face couldn't hide the deep fatigue. She looked as if she had aged at least 10 years. My mom and I didn't stay for the whole ceremony. We escaped the smoky, alcohol-filled wedding venue. Feel better now? She asked. I nodded, running wildly through the fields, my eyes unconsciously turning red. I turned and ran to hug my mom, whispering into her ear, "Have I ever told you something?" "What?" "Mom, I love you." In a place I couldn't see, my mom's collar was soaked with tears. I know. During the days of applying to colleges, I practically wore out the application book at home. In the end, I decided to study law in my home state to spend more time with my mom. My mom's hot pot stall, with the silent support of teachers, students, and even the city inspectors, moved into a newly built shop near the school gate. In my junior year of college, using the scholarships I had saved for a long time and money from tutoring, I bought my mom her first gold bracelet. She looked at the exquisite bracelet in the gift box with surprise. "Why did you waste this money? I won't even use it. It'll just get in the way when I work." Although she said it was a waste, she happily accepted it and would often take it out to look at it. After graduating and earning money, I started taking her on trips every other week. When taking pictures, her favorite was still the green dress I had given her. Sometimes I would ask if she ever regretted raising me, but no matter how many times I asked, the answer was always no. In the past, she used her thin shoulders to lift me up. Today, I will use my soaring wings to take her flying.